I had a great upbringing. 2 parents who loved each other, a safe neighborhood, family traditions and vacations, friends, and a strong church community. My parents always told me how important it is to be in community with other people. Being connected to others allowed for more support when life was good and when life was hard. If my mom wasn't volunteering as a Girl Scout leader, school choir director, yearbook committee member, or worship leader at our church, she was inviting people over to our home for summer barbecues, pool parties, and Christmas dinners. I truly learned what it meant to live in service to others by loving them through our ordinary daily interactions and taking time to really spend together with people. When I was 12, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. For 5 years she fought, and for 5 years the community that we poured into poured right back into us. They supported us emotionally, spiritually, and even financially because of the strong connections that my parents had with our friends and family around us. Being connected to others allowed for more support when life was good and when life was hard. After my mom died, our community took a step back. Death causes discomfort for people. I understood. But my family felt isolated and alone, and we experienced a range of emotions in our grieving. I wondered if we'd ever find a way to reconnect with our community, this community that my mom had built and nurtured. Would they accept us in our new normal? Would they accept us without her? I felt isolated. I felt isolated even with a strong community of support. Now imagine a young girl trying to cope with loss without a community of support. Imagine anyone trying to cope with loss without a strong support system. Maybe some of you have experienced loss through death or through the broken relationship with someone you loved. I imagine in this room many of us could recall times of feeling lonely and isolated. But imagine all of the people feeling isolated who are even less visible to us. People who probably aren't represented in this room. Those experiencing homelessness who are just longing for someone to look them in the eye. Parents of children with disabilities who give up their social life so that they can care for their child. Older adults in assisted living facilities who wonder if anyone will ever come visit them. Or foster youth living in a new home for the first time, far removed from anything that's familiar to them. Social isolation is experienced by many individuals in the United States, and rates of loneliness are increasing. According to social researcher Brene Brown, in 1980, 20% of Americans reported feeling lonely. Today, it's more than double that percentage, meaning that over 40% of Americans report feeling lonely. If we know that being connected to others allows for more support when life is good and when life is hard, then how do we foster connection between people? People experiencing grief, isolation, oppression, stigmatization. I remember the friends who showed up at my door 2 weeks after my mom died to take me to a concert, and the honorary moms who stood in the gap and allowed me to process my grief when I didn't even know how I was feeling. Family and friends found ways to communicate their desire to stay connected to my family and navigate this new normal for us, even though it was all uncharted. Even though I still felt isolated in my own grief, our community found ways to communicate their authentic support. And they gave me hope that I would find healing. They showed up. They were there when life was good and when life was hard. Finding ways for people to have authentic social support is important. A study looking at former foster youth with mental health challenges identified social supports as key in helping those youth transition into adulthood. Even though there were mental health professionals and case managers in their lives, these youth preferred social supports who weren't paid to be there to support them, and it was important for their well-being. Another study looked at communities who supported one another and noticed that they had a decreased risk of child maltreatment in those neighborhoods. Imagine neighborhoods coming together to support one another when life is good and when life is hard. I want you to take a minute and close your eyes. This prompt comes from Mr. Rogers. Close your eyes for a few moments and recall with gratitude those who have believed in you and helped you on your way. So go ahead, just close your eyes for a moment. And recall with gratitude those who have believed in you and helped you on your way. Who believed in you as a child? Who was there when family life was messy? Who was there when you celebrated birthday parties, graduations, marriage, the birth of your first child? Think of someone who was sitting with you when you felt hopeless, who reminded you that you were enough, even when you didn't believe it yourself. Think of someone who embraced you as celebration when you had the courage to make big life decisions about who you wanted to be, who you wanted to spend your life with, and how you wanted to impact the world. Now open your eyes. You have the power to be that person for someone. For the homeless neighbor who is just trying to find permanent housing. For your grandma experiencing Alzheimer's who's living in the assisted living facility just down the road. Or for the young African American girl living with her first foster family in a primarily white community. You can help them feel less lonely just by acknowledging their pain and being present with them. Send a text to your parents, write a note of support to a friend, or start a conversation with a stranger. As we conclude, I want you to remember this. Our response doesn't have to come through these grand gestures, but rather through accepting opportunities for connection in our daily interactions. Perhaps you will be the reason why a young girl who lost her mom finds the strength to heal and share her story about the power of support. Thank you.